Nu skal vi fra Norge til Finland, nemlig Hyväpäivä til Mikko Ahonen fra GSM til 5G mobilmaster, sundhedsrisici og epidemiologisk evidens.
So hello everybody, it's a pleasure to be here. So, and I like the thing that it says that from Finland, because nowadays I live in Sweden, and if I make something in Swedish, så jag är en rejäl finnjävel som bor i Sverige. So I will have my presentation in Finnish anyway. So I've been looking quite a lot at base stations. So it has been like my destiny, so to say, as a researcher, also as a measurement expert. So let's go further. So first I was a researcher at the University of Tampere in Finland. And the last something like 11 years I have been working with electromagnetic fields or bioelectromagnetics area. And I'm also an educator. I have visited institutions, schools especially, over 10 years. And we have a little non-profit organization with my UK and US colleagues called Wireless Education. But here I would like to tell you that we have been working quite a lot together with Lennart Hardel, so medical doctor and Professor Lennart Hardel, and we have been measuring interesting places like Central Railway Station or T-Centralen in Stockholm. And we have also been measuring apartments and seeing that these levels have getting higher and higher all the time. And I find it strange that these radiation safety authorities say that no, they haven't gotten much higher, because they have really gotten higher, let's say, within 5 years, so much more. So now I'm talking about electromagnetic fields, especially about non-ionizing radiation. And when we look at the picture, so it's about radio frequency spectrum and also microwaves or microwave spectrum. And already in 2010, we looked at all epidemiological studies related to mobile phone base stations. And we were surprised that something like 8 of 10 studies showed increased risk. And we put it in the research papers that there was increased prevalence of adverse neurobehavioral symptoms or cancer in populations living at distances less than 500 meters from base stations. I must say that always when we do epidemiological studies, we have challenges because we compare exposed or heavily exposed groups to those which are not exposed. And we don't have none or not exposed groups anymore. So that is also one challenge. And not always is the distance the only indicator, because if we do these kind of studies, we should measure radio frequency, power density levels in apartments at the same time. Then we could say very exactly what is the situation. So I will show you a picture from Turku in Swedish Åbo, so from Finland. So this is a typical situation when my colleagues and we are being called and connected. So there are people living in the same level as where those base stations are installed, and especially the antennas are installed and directed. And for example, in these high-rise buildings, people didn't have problems in those lowest floors, like say first and second floor, but there were problems in those highest floors. And Einar already told you about these guidelines. So these guidelines allow quite high exposure. It's my opinion, but also opinion of my 200 researcher colleagues. We just made a 5G appeal. So signed with Ulle, you were involved, and several others, most likely. Yeah. So first I could look at back to history. There is quite a lot of studies, epidemiological studies already about radio and TV transmitters, or really those huge masts. And there are findings which show more leukemia and lymphoma. So even history is teaching something about these things. Of course, we could always do these studies better, but even here, the majority of studies shows an increased risk. And here I'm just listing those studies what we looked in 2010 with Lennart Hardell, Vinnie Kuriana from Australia, and other scientists. And so most of them showed an increased risk. And thereafter, actually, there has not been funding. Most of these studies has been done without funding. So I find it also very strange that we don't have funding for very important research. And if we have funding, we have something like 50% industry funding, and that's not good. So after 2010, there is as far as I know, only one mobile phone base station study from Dode and others from Brazil, and it is about cancer. And my little hobby is this chronic exposure. We researchers need hobbies, and this is my little hobby. So I collect research papers and news about base stations. So you are welcome to look at it. It might be fascinating, or not. So why maybe this? And now I'm getting to these newer technologies. So UMTS, Universal Global Telecommunication System, is the same as 3G, and it has been compared against GSM. And even to myself, GSM signal is more, let's say, systematic. While in 3G, 4G, the signal is highly varying, and it's using huge amount of frequencies. And when 5G is coming, there will be even more frequencies. And Igor Belyayev, who is one of the best researchers in this area, so he comes originally from Russia, he has been working in Sweden and now in Slovakia. So he just points out that there is a possibility for harm, greater possibility, when there are more frequencies used. So some of those frequencies will be bioactive for human beings. And these findings, actually, they were visible already in 2004, and it's a shame that this big EU project, Reflex, didn't get extra funding. Franz Adelkofer was pointing also then that 3G is more bioactive than GSM. Okay, now I'm getting close to 5G. First, so now they are installing new kind of 4G base stations where they have altogether 128 antenna elements. This is a new situation. So normally we have had only some antennas in a base station. But with these newer ones, we have found some of these newer ones. So we have also measured them. So there are really active antennas. And actually there is a feature called beamforming that is already possible with 4G. And that is fascinating. But if we go higher in spectrum range or frequency range, so then we are talking about millimeter waves, and we also talking about massive MIMO, so multiple input, multiple output. So in this kind of base station, there can be 510 antenna elements and 8 beams. And I try to speed up now. So there is a research already showing that it increases quite a lot exposure. And I'm just wondering why these radiation protection authorities say that there is no change, because there will be quite a big change. And why the industry doesn't like, or some organizations, they don't like that there would be lower guidelines, because in places like Russia, they have 100 times lower guidelines than in Nordic countries. So, and this is the picture that is related to them. So they would have safety areas like 150 meters close to base station. But with current ICNIRP guidelines, what we have in Nordic countries, you need only 10. Okay, Einar already showed you this picture, so I'm showing it again. So there is a huge difference between already with Russia, but also with these precautionary levels from Council of Europe or European compared to our guidelines. And we have already big animal studies showing that the exposure below guidelines, there is an increase in heart tumors. This is in Swedish, this slide. Oh, I see. And there is same year, 2018, came a study. So this was more related to mobile phone light exposure from National Toxicology Program. But what is fascinating, it was also evidence of heart tumors. So Schwann cell tumors. And that is, so be informing. And I would not like to be a person living between, or living in this hotspot. So it might create a totally new situation. And even they say that this is a calculation, and they say that even within existing too high ICNIRP guidance levels, they say that there might come a situation that may lead to permanent tissue damage after even short exposures, and even these ICNIRP guidelines should be looked again. And what I wish more studies on hormone profiles, genetic damage close to base stations. Here are some studies, but there is no funding for them. And once again, I'm saying that I'm not the only researcher. So thank you for your attention.
Kiitos Mikko Ahonen.